And we are live. How's it going, Shane?
I'm doing great.
Good. Another week?
Yeah, well, we got through it.
For sure. We're going to start this one off like we have been previously with some viewer mail. And I'm going to go ahead and just read this. I'm going to let everybody know we actually started up a new email address that from now on you can send us mail at podcast@thearcade.com. And then maybe you can have your email read on the podcast.
It was much better than the system we had before, where you would write out what you wanted, tie it to a brick, and throw it at the building.
Yeah, and the snail mail. I mean, we were just getting here too late. We couldn't read them all. So, I'm going to start this one off. It is, hello, Craig and Shane. I wanted to send an actual fan mail that wasn't from your mom. I wanted to weigh in on a few things from the last 4 podcasts. Regarding All New, All Different, episode 24, I really like the miniseries Clear from Scott Snyder and Francis Manapul. I felt it should have gotten an honorable mention for Best of 2023. I don't disagree. The problem is when we go through these lists, analyzing an entire year of comics, it becomes rough to kind of narrow things down. I very, very, very much enjoyed that book, and it's a respectable opinion.
Well, I think I had about 10 or 11 on my honorable mentions list. I thought I was pushing it as it was, but it's a good comic.
For sure. Regarding Black Hat, episode 26, I thought an awesome idea would be to mention classic long-lasting heroes who suffer from a weak rogues gallery. I feel like Thor and Captain Atom need some love with better villains. I also don't disagree with that. I think it's a cool concept to go over. Like, who are those heroes that are just like, they've maintained their awesomeness, but their villains are kind of like, wah, wah.
Sure. So, I wasn't really looking for notes, but, it's a good idea. It's fine. It's not a bad concept at all. No, it's a good idea.
Regarding Wonder Boys, I must say I'm conflicted. Instantly, I say Dick Grayson is the best hands down, but when I reflect, I can't say that's true. I'm a younger, modern reader. 90% of my reading has been New 52 forward. So to me, Dick Grayson is Nightwing, not Robin. So from that viewpoint, my favorite Robin has to be Damian Wayne.
Oh, he got me back by agreeing with me. All right.
Lastly, I think it would be really fun to have an episode dedicated to Spawn and Spawn's universe with the upcoming 350 milestone. Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Best regards, Wes. So thank you, Wes, for our third, I guess, fan mail.
That we've read. Yeah, I'm not going to sift through those stacks anymore. I can barely get to the desk.
There's just so much. Ridiculous. We had to, again, at podcast@thearcade.com.
I got one today I read from Amal Clooney. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah, she is a fan.
That's great. This episode is called Running with the Devil, and we will be right back with the podcast.
Amal Clooney, Esquire. Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Arcade Comics Podcast. I am Craig Ray, joined by Shane Pace.
How's everybody out there?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, it was a rough week, but every day's a blessing, and this is another day, and we are here to provide another great episode, hopefully.
Yep.
We're going to bat this one out of the park. It's called Running with the Devil, and we are going to highlight my favorite character in the Marvel Universe, Daredevil, Matt Murdock.
Absolutely. And
it was just going to be the first half of this episode, but the more I thought about it, the more it's like there's too much to say about
there's plenty
about Matt. So we're going to go with it. But first, you want to talk about what we've been reading this week?
Sure, absolutely. I guess I will start with so I've been trying to be more proactive. There's a lot of tools available for retailers, such as like advanced reader type things where like you can log into the portal as far as where you would usually order and stuff, and they'll usually have, like watermarked PDF versions of like some books or like a few pages highlighting like new books coming out and things like that. So I'll talk about the one first that you have not read, and we can kind of move on with this list. So a book that comes out March 6th called The Last Mermaid from Image. It's visually very striking. Like the art is incredible. Admittedly, there's not a whole lot of words in it because the main character, picture this. So it is a mermaid inside of like a bubble filled with water, and then that is placed into a mech. And the two characters in it so far are like a mermaid and like an axolotl, like lizard in it. And it appears that they're looking for suitable water, and the water that she has within that tank even isn't suitable. So it looks like adventure-ish. It's kind of whimsical and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. I read the entire issue is presented on the site, on the Lunar website, and it looks fantastic.
And when's that come out?
That is March 6th. Okay. So upcoming.
Who knows when that'll be?
We haven't hit NFOC yet, but it's coming up shortly. So anybody interested in something like that, be sure to put it on your pull
And that's
list.
from Image Comics. Always good to see a new...
Absolutely.
What could be the next great Image title?
The other thing, before I get to the last thing that we can both speak on, is I've been chugging along still. Well, in preparation, I started flipping through some Daredevil stuff, but I'll get into that later. And then I've been going through Hickman's Avengers again. Like, I'm trying to, like... By again, I mean I went back to it again, trying to get through it in its entirety. It's a large run.
It is.
In the second Omni now, I believe.
But an absolute joy, isn't it?
We just had some doppelganger fights from other universe. So I'm having a blast with that. It's really hard for me to say. I mean, I'm not even finished, and it's hard for me to say that it's not like a top 5 run of all time for mine.
Yeah, and as far as I think it's the best Marvel event book of all time. Certainly my favorite Avengers of all time. I think it's one of the best. And as far as 2010s, it has to be top 5.
Sure,
for me,
hands down. The last one that I think that I've read like completely is again with the preview, and you just read it as well.
Just read it, so I'm still emotionally
kind of reeling
affected by it. Yes.
Wonder Woman #6, the preview came up for that. This closes out the Outlaw arc, which is the first. So these first 6 issues are the story arc.
Since Tom King and Dan Sampier took over the book.
And nothing has changed. It is still the best.
Folks, I think this is the best book that DC's putting out, and I think it's the best book I think word for word, it's the best book on shelves right now.
It's incredible. Like, the art is there, the story is there. I mean, I highly, highly encourage people, if you have not picked up Wonder Woman yet, at this point, you're a few months out from picking up the trade. At the very least, pick up the trade.
I don't remember
see if you like it.
One arc, 6-issue arc that felt this monumental. That felt this much like a milestone for a character. This like firmly plants her
absolutely
where she should be in the DC pantheon.
The first few issues, I was wondering if it was actually that good or if I was just pleasantly surprised at how good it was.
Right.
And that got left in the dust right around issue 3, and it actually is that good.
Yeah.
So
it's very much about myth making too, which is appropriate for Wonder Woman. But this feels like how humans talk about their gods, how they're presented. It's like this comic. The script is probably carved in, like, chiseled into tablets. That's probably how he writes this. It's legends will abound. And because of the way it's being told to someone after the fact, it is like a legend being told around a campfire. You can imagine about these gods of yore.
And with the run, a lot of the timing and stuff starting to make sense. So at the end of issue 800 from the main run, before they did the renumbering from the legacy numbering, there was a few months there, and I think that was lead time for Sampier and King to work the magic on this. And I honestly, to this day, still don't know how Sampier is getting the work done.
I don't know anybody.
Some of the most beautiful work I've ever seen.
I assume that he paints it. He's on some sort of scaffolding on his back, painting it on a ceiling. That's how I think these pages are rendered. A little Michelangelo joke for everybody.
And
it's incredible. This is like the best art being produced in America today.
It's incredible, and I say that to say, ultimately, issue 7, it is going to be a break from Sampier on art, but Tom King is still writing. It's going to be like a one-off issue in between now and the next arc. So now is an excellent time to catch up. But this next issue appears
it's going to be a fun one,
a not to miss as well.
Yeah, John and Sampier, he's getting replaced by no slouch himself, Guillaume March.
That's awesome,
and it's gonna look great.
So what was the solicitation on 7 even? So like 7, you could pop in.
Wonder Woman and Superman are going to go outer space to an outer space mall to get the perfect gift for their friend Bruce.
see. I mean,
see, we have fun too. It's not all.
it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So it's the best book I think being produced right now, and everybody should be reading it. I think it should be taught in schools.
Absolutely. So that was me. What have you been reading this week? I know you.
Oh, it was a good week. Well, I told you I read that. It was great. There's a great novel that came out called Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. But it's a great satire on the modern American political system. But if that's not your bag, the Beast World wrapped up this week.
Yep.
And you guys know I wasn't the biggest fan, but it finished with its strongest issue. The last issue was a lot of fun.
And Taylor's writing that event, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And Taylor usually doesn't miss for me, but this was kind of like all right. But I think it's setting up the next thing, and hopefully the next thing is great. Amanda Waller is really, I don't know when the woman sleeps. She's got a lot going on. Batman Off-World number 3 by Jason Aaron came out. That's still an absolute blast. I don't know what the sales look like, but it's been a great book so far.
I mean, and Aaron, like, with all the announcements and stuff, so he was doing nothing at DC, and currently he's doing Action and Off-World, and then he was just announced for Ninja Turtles, which we've discussed previously. Yeah. Like he's doing some work right now.
But we know he can handle the workload. And I don't know if you got to read Duke number 2.
I have not yet.
Duke 2 came out. It's out. It's continues the streak of being the most fun. The Energon universe is just a roller coaster ride. It's an absolute blast. And then Bone Orchard Tenement, the new that run. That little part of the Bone Orchard mythos wrapped up with issue 8, which is great. But and World Tree came back.
Yep.
Did you get to read that yet?
Nope.
It's all right. Well, World Tree, you've got to be prepared. You got to sit down and know you're gonna watch.
I honestly, with the break, most of the time what I do, and I guess what stopped me from it is I want to go back, read the first trade leading into it, because with comics the way it goes now, it's fast and furious. I like going back, rereading it
and with something as dense as World Tree,
right?
You benefit from it. There was a lot of times where I was like, "Wait, who? Okay, yeah."
In order to catch up, I have to sit down and actually read 7 issues, right? That's the way I'm approaching.
Oh, I see. Yeah, 7. They've all had the same vein, but 7 feels the most. I think it's most akin to Nice House on the Lake.
That's cool though.
His DC series are just wrapped up. Yeah, it feels very much like Stephen King's It. These old friends reconnecting for a purpose that, like, it's probably there's a reason we haven't spoken in so long, guys.
Right.
But then I think we need to touch on finally. Avengers Twilight number 2 came out.
Yep.
And it was absolutely
sold out already.
Did you get to this one? I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, sir.
It's you're in for an absolute treat. We've seen the conceit of the comic is that it's in some point in the distant future. The Avengers have been not outlawed, but something happened. I think they're referred to as H-Day in this, and the Avengers are not liked. They're demonized by the press and the population. And Captain America has to be retired, but now he sees that things are going poorly. The media is manipulating people. It's being manipulated. People don't believe in freedoms like they used to, and he has to come back for one last blah blah. Now that's because it's very simple. You think that you've seen it. I have not. The way it's being told and the things that are happening are every page is a new surprise and a new delight. And Tom Brevoort, longtime Marvel legendary editor, apparently read the third one and wrote on his newsletter that it is one of the greatest comics that he has ever read in his 20 plus years working in
which is the next issue coming out.
That's the issue coming up next. So it's only on 2. There's plenty of time to catch up.
And exciting news that completely relates to that is we found out this week that Chip and Jorge Jimenez are going to be at C2E2 in Artist Alley.
Going to be there. We are going to meet them and hopefully high five them. I'm going to get a picture with Chip. Probably not with Jorge, though. I don't need that. I don't need to draw that comparison. That beautiful, beautiful angel man.
I just saw a statement that said something like, "No, I don't want to take a picture with you. Like my specialty of skills don't show up in a picture.
No,
yours do."
I mean, I'm an 8 on my best day. Jorge wakes up at 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, Jorge wakes up from a bender. That guy's gorgeous.
Yep.
And he can draw.
And he can draw the shit.
Oh man,
anything.
Yeah. So that's exciting, and we'll talk about that more as it approaches.
But relating to Chip, this is an episode about Daredevil, and I'm sure we'll get around to him at some point.
Absolutely, so. We're gonna come to Chip Zdarsky, the most recent writer on Daredevil. His run ended last year, but yeah, that is what we are talking about, and
Absolutely.
I guess there's no better place to start than the beginning.
All right,
yeah, it is. It is 1964. Uncle Sam was about to be a real thorn in Vietnam's side. The Beatles wanted to hold our hand, and Julie Andrews was making the medicine go down with just a little bit of sugar. In Mary Poppins. But in April of that year, a new kid came around. Daredevil #1 premiered. And it was, you got to say, Marvel was on a roll since their renaissance of, like, maybe we should do the superhero books again. Stan and Kirby had done Fantastic Four. They've done Spider-Man. They've done Thor. Like, everybody's coming out, and then this is just one more example of lightning in a bottle, that they were just striking gold one after another. And he did not appear in another book. This was his first thing.
Daredevil 1 was his first appearance.
Daredevil 1, and he was the co-created. So Jack Kirby is rumored to have done the basic character design, which would make sense. He's Jack Kirby. He did everything, but he did definitely give him the Billy Club. That was a Kirby. Which, imagine Daredevil without the club. You can't.
Sure.
Yeah. But he was co-created by Bill Everett, who is a legend in his own right. Bill Everett. William Blake Everett, who is apparent.
He just sounds important.
So apparently he is an actual descendant of William Blake.
Well, that's cool.
The poet. So he knows something about from which he speaks. Now he created completely, wrote and drew Submariner.
That's cool.
That is his. So he was deep in the game, heavy in the game. So Submariner, 1939, 1940.
Yep.
So he'd been doing it for years. So you got Stanley and Bill Everett coming up with this great character. Everybody should know Matt Murdock was trying to save a woman from crossing the street. Saw a chemical truck driving. Got her out of the way, but the truck crashed. The chemical spilled, got into his eyes, and apparently nowhere else. And they imbued him with. They blinded him, but they imbued him with heightened senses. So all of his other senses were heightened, so he could hear. Super hearing. Super feeling, which I've always thought has to be the worst of his powers.
Oh yeah,
the absolute worst. Like, every touch has to, like, give you so much goosebumps. Who knows? I do. You got to wonder, like, what were those chemicals supposed to be doing?
The other interesting thing that's happened over the years is supposedly that is also what created those Ninja Turtles.
And
that's fun. Fun mythology.
If you read the very first issues by Eastman and Laird. They are on the scene,
right,
over on the side, and it's interesting, and we'll talk about this later. But what is the ninja organization that Daredevil has to fight and then later lead? It's called the Hand.
The Hand.
What does the TMNT have to fight?
The Foot.
The Foot. Who teaches Daredevil? Stick.
Right.
Who teaches the Ninja Turtles? Splinter. It's
there's a lot of, like,
they were having fun. Eastman and Laird they were kids. They were having a good time, and we're all the better for it. And I remember when I first realized that, and I was just like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Exactly 20 years later, it was 84, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And you got to. I wonder, Frank Miller. I don't. Knowing him now, like, does he think that's very fun, like it is, or is he just a dick about it?
Right.
Like, oh, I'm so serious. Blah blah blah. But no. And I've read those. I think I've read the first, like, 60 issues, those Silver Age that Stan did. Stan wrote the first 50, and then he was done. So and who knows what that means? I'm sure that means, like, the artist did everything, and the Stan filled in some blanks. The artist we need to talk about, because there was a veritable murderer's row, because the Marvel bullpen had the
insane art at the beginning of this book,
and of them, Joe Orlando, John Romita Sr., Gene Colan, among others, all drew the book, penciled the book at some point, along with Bill Everett. But Wally Wood, legendary Wally Wood, folks, almost no one could draw a sexier woman than Wally Wood, to the point where, like, he produced comics. He produced racy comics, just for the armed forces, for the GIs to, like, pass around and read. There's some pretty good ones. I think Cannon is one of my. I've read that. It's a lot of fun.
So that's probably, a logical step, because Romita Sr. was always, he was always identified as, like, oh, he can draw pretty faces and things like that. So it was probably, like, a logical follow-up in that regard, even just by itself.
I think Wally Wood was early, though. Wally Wood was, like, issue 8 or 9 he came on, because he's the one, if you guys know the early issues of Daredevil, he had a yellow and red costume.
Yep.
And a single D, and it was Wally Wood who made him. We're gonna have just a uniform red costume and 2 Ds for Daredevil. So his iconic DD came from Wally Wood, Wally Wood, folks, is also the guy who you have. This is a fun anecdote. We don't mean to be crass, but Power Girl's bust is the size it is because Wally Wood was on the assignment for the All-Star Squadron.
She has a DD on her chest.
Yeah, and he. Hey-o! All right. Wally Wood said that he was gonna draw her bust bigger and bigger in each issue until the DC editors
Stopped him.
Figured out and said stop, and then that's what he was gonna leave it as, and he did.
That's awesome.
And he did.
And Frank Cho has been running with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Power Girl, we'll talk about her one day, but what a great character in her own right, who I would not have seen coming. But yeah, Wally Wood, you have to thank for that, and Daredevil's outfit. In addition to, like, if you guys just Google Wally Wood art, you're in for a treat. The guy was amazing, but he left. He had disagreements with Stan Lee. I assume I'm just gonna take Wally Wood's side on that. I'm that guy. I absolutely am.
Unseen.
Yeah, but they were fun. The early issues were fun, but it's so foreign to the Daredevil that we know today.
That was what, like Stiltman.
Stiltman. So yeah, all the rogues kind of showed up in those first 50 issues. Issue number 4 was the Purple Man. That was just a number 4, and that was a Daredevil. You have the Owl. You have Stiltman. You have Gladiator.
Yep.
And they were fun, but they were a little goofy. And that's what the temper of the comics, the Marvel comics in the 60s were.
Sure.
He at some point, like, to hide his like secret identity, Matt pretended to be his own brother, Mike, and Mike would come in and he would be like, glad hand people would be like,
what's going on, guys?
Yeah, he'd be goofy and like he'd be flirting with Karen, and but the thing is, like, he didn't do anything to like change how he looked. The only thing is he wasn't blind, which is interesting, unquote. Like, he could fake being sighted that well. So I guess but that thing is, like, so he was just an asshole who wore sunglasses indoors. But it was kind of goofy, and it
that's funny. I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, and it carries you through. But every time I'm reading those early issues, and I see Mike Murdock, it's like, oh man, this fucking guy.
But the blueprint's there, right?
Yeah,
all these issues,
everything's there. And again, like with X-Men, I don't like those early issues, but all the DNA is all there. And then as with almost everything, every early Marvel book that Stan Lee quit writing, Roy Thomas took over.
Sure.
Roy Thomas, I think a school teacher from, I don't know, I think Missouri or something like that, takes it over. And what's that?
This is Running with the Devil, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll just do a show about Roy Thomas. We'll call it Hot for Teacher. Oh my
hot dog. Well, can't change it now, but that's we could do it. We could do a Roy Thomas.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Roy Thomas and then Jerry Conway, and between the two of them, they got, I think, to issue 98, and it was Jerry Conway that eventually brought in Black Widow.
Okay.
In the 70s as his co-star, like, she was just there, and that starts the whole him and Natasha's like partnership and why they're so close. And I won't say the first, but one of his many toxic relationships, one of his many volatile relationships that he had, amongst other. But that's a theme with Matt. Matt he chooses. I don't know. Matt doesn't have the best luck.
Sure.
But he can handle it. So. Interesting though is, so after you get to issue 100, and again, this guy still has not had the memorable run. He's not had like that, but he's such a cool character, so the book sells.
Sure.
It does fine. And then
the design is striking, and the way that he's always drawn, the way he moves is different. Like his action, he's
always flying sideways on the cover. He's always
and his movement is different than other heroes' movement. Like, and I even remember when we were talking about the Echo trailer, and do you remember that? I mean, unfortunately, they spoiled that in the TV spot. I know it was to get people hype and stuff.
But I didn't see it.
Okay.
So when I saw it, I was like, there he is.
Yeah, so there's that one kick where both feet in front, where it's like a straight line kick. I'm like, that's Daredevil. It was amazing.
It's like somebody drew it, and then it's like, all right, now do this with your human body, and he did it, and it was great. But we're gonna get to Charlie Cox. We're gonna get to Charlie Cox because he is terrific.
It's awesome.
Yeah. This is a celebration of the character, because he is, again, he's my favorite Marvel character. He always has been, because of the Marvel Knights, and we're gonna get to that. I think he's the strongest, and also the power. The idea is so cool. Like, he's blind, and the senses are so heightened that he can he can hear with echolocation or
And it helps with
feel his
being a
way
lawyer
around.
because he's listening to heartbeats
Yes,
and all that.
yes.
I mean, it plays
and then,
into all aspects.
so he can read Braille. This is true, but he can also like on newsprint or books. He
Tactile touch the ink and all that.
The letters, so he knows what they are, which has to be like fine, but it has to take forever. Like A, then R, then D. Like, you know.
But it's amazing though.
It's such a cool idea. It's such a cool idea.
I don't want to interrupt your flow.
No.
I want to ask you a question real quick.
Shoot.
And I know we're going through all of this, but just for context, where did you start with Daredevil? Where did you?
1998 Marvel Knights.
Okay,
with Kevin Smith.
We can move on from there. I'm just curious.
And it was cool because I was like 15.
Yeah,
it was like the perfect time.
That's awesome.
The perfect thing. Yeah. So we're almost to the 80s now, or I think we might be in the 80s, and then we have we're cycling through some writers now, but they're all, again, the Marvel bullpen. It was just insane. People like Steve Gerber. Before he jumped onto Howard the Duck, my beloved Howard the Duck, Marv Wolfman, and Roger McKenzie. And Marv Wolfman is the one who co-created Bullseye.
That's awesome.
In 131, that's crazy. So like Stiltman and the Owl and the Purple Man were like in the teens over here,
right? And
his most iconic, and I think like it's such a of course, no duh. The Bullseye, the guy can just like
right.
So Daredevil has to hear and like precisely like stop everything, and only he can do that. I always thought like Bullseye would have a field day if he would just fight somebody else.
Right.
Maybe Hawkeye could like stop him, but it's a really
right.
unique set of skills that Bullseye has. I also like Bullseye's always been kind of like an unrepentant dick.
Yes.
Kind of a cocky jerk. And he portrayed by Colin Farrell. It was fine.
I was okay with that, though. At the time. I liked it.
I was fully on board with that. I still am.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So it was Frank Miller, though, that started doing the penciling while Roger McKenzie was still on it. Miller did not like McKenzie's scripts. So Dennis O'Neil, Frank Miller was like such a rising star. Dennis O'Neil was the editor-in-chief at Marvel at the time. He fired Roger McKenzie off of it and gave the book to Frank Miller. So now we have Frank Miller on the book, and it's like, put up or shut up. But it's Frank Miller, man.
He put up.
And Frank Miller, what he did, he essentially, and that's why I say like the Silver Age stuff, the Silver and Copper Age stuff, Bronze Age stuff rather, you can kind of, I don't say you should, but you can. He ignored it.
Yeah,
he was like, I will kind of keep some of the characters, but if I do, they're going to have like, I'm reinterpreting their origins and everything. But he totally reinterpreted the character of Matt Murdock. The gritty Matt Murdock that we have today comes from Frank Miller,
and responsible for making Kingpin one of his.
Kingpin
was Spider-Man.
Was Spider-Man's.
Yep.
And it was Frank Miller, and it's a cool. It's very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. And also I don't know. I would always I want to know where it developed, where Daredevil and Spider-Man became such close friends.
Right.
I've always loved that. I've always wanted to see that in a movie. I still do. I just want to see a fun conversation on top of the Brooklyn Bridge between Spider-Man and Daredevil in costume, just talking about their day, and that's all I want.
But it makes sense, and I like it when, to a certain extent, Miller had to have thought about it, because Kingpin and Spider-Man, I mean, it's very overpowered on the one side there, right? I mean, Spider-Man can lift 10 tons.
True, but he's still a street-level hero.
He is a street-level hero. I mean, in that regard, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think Daredevil is a better match. And I know that's just because I've read Frank Miller's stuff.
And also because, Peter Parker is really good at science. Matt Murdock's a terrific lawyer.
Absolutely.
He'll get you. He'll get you, and that's one of his things. If he knows you're guilty and he can't get you in a courtroom, he'll get you on the streets. Which for somebody who values the American justice system as much as Matt Murdock does, there's a lot of crises of conscience there. But crisis of conscience and crisis of faith is where Matt Murdock lives.
And I think the thing I appreciated the most about Frank Miller is like the whole Catholicism part was front and center with him. And I like that additional.
And it was, and we'll talk about like there are times where it would spike and go down where other writers would embrace it more.
Yeah.
But we should also talk about the art in those Frank Miller, because Frank Miller he was no slouch in the 80s.
For sure.
He could draw. He forgot. But at the time though, he had David Mazzucchelli, Lee Weeks, but I think the one that everybody associates most is Klaus Janson.
Yep.
And they were doing work like and this is where we get the introduction of like Daredevil is like fighting the Hand.
Yep.
Being taught by Stick. This is where it all comes in.
Elektra.
And so Frank Miller creates Elektra, an assassin of Greek descent.
Yep.
I guess that's where you would assume assassins come from. She is a match for Daredevil in every way, romantically, physically, in fighting prowess, and she's awesome. And they even did their own spin-off series that Frank Miller wrote, and Bill Sienkiewicz did all the art for. Now, this is not early New Mutants Bill Sienkiewicz. This is full-on Bill Sienkiewicz off the chain. The art is just bonkers, but it is terrific. There's something about it. That
the series where, unless I'm misremembering, is that the one where Amanda Connor actually was a model for one of the covers that was drawn? That is one of them?
Yes, I think it's the iconic one of her, like
standing there sideways in profile.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It is, and the story's so weird, and the art would come back as such that Frank Miller would turn in the scripts, he'd see the art that Bill Sienkiewicz did, and then he said he would rewrite parts of the story based around how good
art.
It was. Yeah. It's almost like there's a fun anecdote about E.T. is when he heard the score, the John Williams wrote the score for the ending for E.T. It didn't match up, but the
score was so good.
That he re-edited it to match up with the score. So that's what I think about with Sienkiewicz, and that's the level they're working at. But you also like think about when Frank Miller and Chris Claremont hooked up to like what if we do this Wolverine story again? Frank Miller's just like, how about we do ninjas? Like you got a lane, man, because you're coming off of Ronin, but. It's so great, like
it is,
and it works so well for the character. And then like the Hand and Stick and Elektra become such an integral part of the character and his whole thing. So we should talk about. You can't talk about the Daredevil run without talking about Born Again.
Yep.
To this day, probably the best known.
Yes,
Daredevil story.
Best known at least for sure.
I know that it began as a film script.
Okay.
He wrote a script. He was asked to, and he turned this in, and it just didn't get made. Blah blah. But he liked the story so much, and he was like, "Well, I'll just make it into a."
So how do you feel about? And I guess the part of it that's controversial always is Karen, right? And how that was like, you first see Karen when this opens up. You first see Karen like South America or something, right? Like drugged out, and then they
because they got her addicted to Fisk got her addicted to heroin.
And then she basically confesses his identity.
Yeah, in order to feed the dragon, she gives away his secret identity. So not only did Fisk wanted to break him down,
right?
So he got his woman, then got her addicted to heroin, then took away his secret identity, and then more chaos ensued. It was a dark story, but I think it was great. People get addicted to heroin. It's terrible. And not that, but she was doing like porn films and everything.
Yep.
Like once you're that
completely destroyed Karen.
That black tar heroin is no joke, man.
It's it makes me
think. I think we all have a summer of 2007 in our past.
So wait, was it in 2007? So no, it's hard for me to read. Like I don't like, but I also think that's why it had such a huge impact. Like I don't like seeing that being done to Karen. I don't like I would arguably say, when I don't want to spoil anything, but that was harder for me than even what happens to her in the future. I'm saying we're going to go through it is what I'm saying. Like that was harder for me to handle than what happens.
It is rough and it is dark, but Karen was also one of his close female relationships that he had that was just rocky to say the least.
Right.
But putting Daredevil and Karen through the thresher is what Frank did. I think it works. I think it works. Because ultimately, like now the character has that in her past, but it's also something like she ultimately overcame, even though she was completely broken. Like as much as you can ever overcome trauma like that. But I think the story itself is incredible.
But it was kind of necessary. It also speaks to the heroism of Matt because in that circumstance, the restraint involved in not ending him.
Yeah, which it's got to be. It's like we talked about last week when Dick Grayson sees Joker for the first time after Barbara gets killed. Like it's one thing to like do it to people, but like someone that you love more than anything, like come on. But Fisk is a bad guy. This made Fisk formidable. This
Absolutely.
made Fisk the dangerous, that could run New York, run the criminal underworld in New York.
I love the way he drew him too. I mean, he was just like all of the panels were like horizontal panels, like nothing really square to fit in his.
Yeah, and they made him a sumo.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the cartoonishly large proportions that we have for Kingpin now come from that.
Yeah.
But it's seminal, and it is something. I think it's an essential read for anybody. It makes the best lists or the must read list for a reason. It is not now that the Frank Miller run is not my favorite.
Sure.
I think it is great. I think it stands out because it came in that period in the 80s where like that and his own Dark Knight Returns and like the Watchmen were like showing like comics could be great. So it is seminal, and we lived with it for so long, and we didn't have another great run until 20 years later or 15 years later. But I think it's a great run, but I don't think it's the best, but I think it did what it did for the character. It essentially created the character that we know today.
And Frank Miller did a lot of work. I'm going to give him credit for that.
Oh, yeah,
in that
Frank
time
Miller
period,
was great.
He did a lot of work for helping to transition those young readers into continuing readers by taking, you take somebody who started reading Daredevil at the beginning and now maybe kind of like growing.
If they grew up with the character,
and they grew up with the character. Now you're telling a story where you're like 25-year-old so-and-so. This is very suitable, and it can help.
like his goofy brother Mike would not have fit in here, and it's better for the character that he didn't. But that's what's crazy because it was so seminal that when Frank Miller left the book, it's like, what do you do now?
Yeah,
what do you do now? So one of I think the most underrated run for sure, just because it doesn't get talked about, but it is good, is Ann Nocenti took over. Now, Ann Nocenti and John Romita Jr., so a fun bit of a symmetry.
Generational.
Yeah. And Ann Nocenti wrote it for 5 years. She wrote it from 86 to 91. And Ann Nocenti, besides being just an absolute knockout, guys, she was working on the X book. It was her, Louis Simonson, Chris Claremont were the brain trust of the X books, X-Men, New Mutants, and I'm not sure, X Factor was 86 or 87. And she had just created Longshot.
Yep.
And Mojo World and the Mojo Verse.
That stuff's wild. I love it.
Wow, like Ann Nocenti is the opposite. Her comics, her writing is the opposite of subtlety, and that is all to the good.
Is she responsible? Is this the same time frame? Is she responsible for Lady Deathstrike, or what would become Lady Deathstrike? That was like issue around 180 or something. I would say so. Yeah. So I think she'd be credited with that.
She is. Now that you mention it, she is. She created Typhoid Mary in the Daredevil books, and Typhoid Mary is also the opposite of subtlety.
Well, that's why it is relevant.
Yeah,
because Lady Deathstrike
absolutely
was introduced in Daredevil, which is a weird spot to be in.
Yeah, and she stuck around. I didn't see Typhoid Mary sticking around like she could, but I remember Alice Eve played the Typhoid Mary, who'd become the Typhoid Mary character in Iron Fist season 2, I think. And one more reason to hate that show is you had Alice Eve, who was nothing like nobody remembers that. Nothing happens. Like the show is already frustratingly bad and frustrating. Like I swear that show, it's the
weak link.
It's the equivalent of reading out the Sprite ingredients to yourself. It's bad, but she created Typhoid Mary. She created Blackheart, who Blackheart showed up in the. I think what we can all agree is probably a great, if not the greatest, comic book film of all time, Ghost Rider. And Wes Bentley played Blackheart. If you don't remember that, don't feel bad. I don't either. I remember Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
I remember wanting to like it. Ghost Rider was written and directed by Mark Steven Johnson, who he had done the Daredevil movie. And before that, he'd done Simon Birch. So whatever studio head made all that happen, I hope he is dead.
Why? You didn't like him that much?
One, it's like, okay, this guy wrote Grumpy Old Man. All right. Then he made Simon Birch. I think he'd be perfect for Daredevil.
No, okay, yes.
And then Daredevil comes out and he's like, give him more work. Give him more work. Then he had to have read the script for Ghost Rider. He's like, you knocked it out of the park again, Mark.
This is
Steven.
it, guys. Sure.
Yeah, like come on. And I love Nick Cage, and I love Eva Mendes, and it has Sam Elliott in it, and nothing works. Like, how do you mess up Flaming Head guy?
I am. I don't know how to be honest, I'm surprised. I'm with you on that one. Like, Daredevil seems like low hanging fruit as far as making it badass. It doesn't take much to make the Spirit of Vengeance just like let's make this a romp, right? I mean, and
it should have been bad out of the park. It should have been an easy underhand lob, but we're gonna get to that because I don't hate the 2003 movie. We're gonna talk about it.
Sure.
Because we're almost at in this
chronology.
We're almost at his first screen appearance. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about Ann Nesenti's run because it was she put in social issues. She put in her own like political views, and I think it works. But it is absolutely insane. She at one point though she is the first one to really take Daredevil out of New York or out of Hell's Kitchen. He becomes like a drifter in upstate New York, and I guess it got ponderous and it got like it could wear on your nerves.
Sure.
But it's kind of a cool thing, and it's the first time, and he would eventually take long trips away from Hell's Kitchen. It would always be interesting because he is so like you can't really separate the two. It's like taking Batman out
Hell's
of Gotham.
Kitchen is another character in that book.
Yes, and I like the idea though of all there's a lot of street level characters. I think they get it right with Luke Cage and Jessica Jones.
Yes.
It's like Daredevil only essentially cares about like these 6 or 7 blocks. Like that's it.
I'm grateful.
That's all
for.
I care.
He is, human.
So cool.
At that
he
point.
is. He gets tired, like leaping from one building to another. I would be like, this guy just like that's how his means of conveyance.
Right.
That's just how he gets around, and then he has to fight people, and that's another thing. And like showing like the wear and tear of every fight is interesting. So but it's 1989. There was a TV movie, so it was the Incredible Hulk, and they did a TV movie called The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, and Rex Smith played Daredevil in it, and I am so happy to find because I found this out while looking stuff up, researching for this episode, because I had always thought that Daredevil was something that I had just dreamt up.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the skull.
Was Daredevil in that?
I always remember the lines, and it's like, did it exist, or is it something that I dreamt? Like skulls with baby hands or water bottles.
Sure.
And there's a line in it that I always remembered where she says that's where I first ever saw that blind people you'd fold money for different denominations. You would mark your clothes for certain things so that like your tie would match, for instance.
Yeah.
And there was a line where a woman says something about like green, and then she apologizes for mentioning a color, and then he says, "I remember green." And I could be misremembering that, but I think that really happened. And it was also supposed to serve and of course Bill Bixby. Yep, played the Hulk and Lou Ferrigno, and Daredevil. Matt Murdock has to defend him in court. I remember it being great, but when I was 5, I thought Superman 4 was the best movie ever, and that's hot garbage.
You're like, I like Peace. This movie's amazing.
I liked everything. But I remember it, and the stills of Rick Smith as Daredevil, they look great.
Yeah,
they look great. They look a lot like season 1, early season 1, or all of season 3. Charlie Cox Daredevil, and it was supposed to serve as like a pilot. It was to be a backdoor pilot for a Daredevil show that they would also launch as a spinoff from the Hulk thing.
Sure,
didn't happen, unfortunately. But here's what's crazy, and here's what I don't remember, and this is why I have to go back and watch this movie now. Jonathan Rhys Davies of Indiana Jones fame, Sala or Gimli in The Lord of the Rings, played Wilson Fisk.
Really?
Yes, and that was 1989. That's the same year that Raiders 3 came out.
Whoa!
We named the dog Indiana. So I have to see that.
That is awesome.
That sounds amazing.
Cool. That'd be sweet. That's awesome.
Although I don't know how I like this very well presented deep voiced gentleman who Jonathan Rhys Davies is. I don't know. I can't reconcile that with Wilson Fisk, but I would love to see his interpretation of it.
Sure, that'd be great.
That's got to be awesome. Oh, We did skip over something that is very important.
Okay.
That from the Frank Miller run. Guys, we're doing it off the cuff. But Elektra getting killed.
Yes.
Bullseye kills her.
Sure.
And if Matt was already self-hating, whatever, this has got to do it even more because Elektra was like his mate. It was his match in every way. And like if there was a I still think if there was a true ultimate mate, it's the Selena to his Bruce.
Yes.
And that messed him up, and her resurrection is also something that's important later. But if you're keeping up at home, we are now in the 90s, so you know what's got to happen to Daredevil. They're gonna change. Oh, man, I don't know if anyone's ever seen. I didn't read these. I read a few, and then I was done. DG Chichester came onto the book, and I guess he was like, I like the Daredevil costume, but I wish it looked stupid.
It was just black armor.
Oh, the armor and the pads, the shoulder and the knee pads, and
it's back right now. Currently, Daredevil Black Armor.
don't
is
even-
another series that's out right now.
well, if it's part of the character's history at this point, then it is. That's fine.
It's a
But
nostalgia book,
At
yeah.
the time, they were asking me to take that seriously, and it's like, look, Youngbloods is already pushing the limits as far as I'm willing to go.
Sure.
As a 10-year-old,
And this is all the Daredevil you got. At this point, it was what was being written.
and
Right
again,
now, it's
so-
a supplementary
yeah,
book.
So you got to think he came on. Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
But you got to think like so. Chester came on after Anna Sensi, and it was 92. So like it is competitive. They're killing Superman just to keep staying in the game. They're breaking Batman's back. You got to do something. So it's like, let's make Daredevil look stupid. I think they probably said let's make him look cool, but it was 90s cool.
yeah, it was much. It was a little much.
And it was bad. I can't really speak to this because I didn't read these comics. I've read up to here, folks, and even I'm just like, I'm good. I am good. So if there's somebody at home who is shouting at their radio or wherever you listen to this, it's not the radio, is it? It's probably a phone or a
Sure.
or a mailbox.
Laptop.
That it's fantastic
Yeah.
and that we're wrong. You know what? Write to us.
Absolutely.
Write to us.
Podcast
Tell me
at
why.
thearcade.com.
But I mean, I was not the only one. I was not the only one that thought this because the book was canceled at 380, and it was canceled, but like not canceled to like be done, but like they were gonna. We have to rework the title. We got to take some time off. We
Right.
got to make him look less stupid. It just was so. It was such a. I'm glad they didn't give him like a bandolier and pouches, but this is the next step down.
Sure.
Yeah, like the Wildcats would not have kicked him out of the cafeteria. Like, who's the new guy? is what
Who's
they just
the
said.
new guy?
Yeah, that's not what they said.
Well, this keeps bumping into tables. It's funny.
So this is where it's going to get a little controversial.
So before you say that, I'm going to say I
Apologize to everybody in advance.
no, not at all. I don't know what you're going to say, but I'm not going to apologize ahead of time.
Okay.
Wait
Wait till
till
after.
after. I was reading, so I was slow on Daredevil.
Okay.
I was doing X-Men, like everybody else, right? I was doing X-Men, I was doing Spider-Man, I was doing, but I mean, I was dabbling at this point. Like I was like, okay, let's branch out a little bit. Like I got a feel for these characters. I'm doing like New Warriors. I'm doing Daredevil, Ghost Rider.
Ghost
Rider.
They were killing it at the time.
Yep. So I was kind of like
All those titles.
moving all over the place. And then
Are you a Night Thrasher fan?
I am a Night Thrasher
Heck
fan.
yes. Okay.
Which is also relevant because next week we're getting a Night Thrasher #1.
It's about time.
It's about
The
time.
nation is.
We're
kind of
ready.
important. We've heeded your call.
I don't think I've seen Night Thrasher since Civil War.
No,
First one. Yeah.
Well, and it's like going back though. I think like why did I like Daredevil then? And I think it was because of that 1989. I think I caught it on TV and I'm like, oh, cool, another superhero that I'd never heard of. Yeah. So anyway,
But there was like, it was still those books were very 90s. I remember, what was the one? It was like a cool like rooftop gargoyle cover, but it was like glow in the dark.
oh,
It was,
that
like,
sounds
gritty.
like a lot of yeah.
But he was back in his costume. I think this was back when it came back. This was like 400 or something. It was like some anniversary.
There were miniseries too that were done at like Frank Miller came back in the 90s and did a mini. That might have been it.
Sure.
Where he put him in his regular costume, and it was good. But no, I think most people jumped on at the time. Daredevil is Marvel did it was called Marvel Knights. It was this new publishing initiative, and it was going to be for darker titles.
like Black Label, but like
Yes.
Marvel.
And it launched in I think 98, like I think it was 98, 99, or it could have been as late as 2000, 2001. I'm not sure, but it was around that time.
I think it was like right at like 2000, 2001. They were waiting. They were like, oh, no Y2K, we can go ahead and launch Marvel Knights.
Yeah,
It was
they
like
were
that type of thing. Yeah.
Hit the button.
Hit the button.
It launched with Daredevil, Black Panther by Christopher Priest.
Yep.
And I think Punisher were the Marvel Knights books that they launched it with.
Makes perfect sense.
And they got Joe Quesada drew it, and Kevin Smith wrote it. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time that they'd really done, like either publisher done the quote unquote celebrity writer.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. And I remember at the time it was a big deal. And because I was 15 or 16, I liked Kevin Smith movies. Then I turned 17 and I'm like, oh, they're bad. Clerks has some good parts.
That is controversial, and
I've memorized.
I will apologize.
I've memorized all of Mallrats. Don't get me wrong. Chasing Amy is kind of embarrassing. Dogma has some really good parts though.
I love those movies, but I'm also have never been interested in filmmaking. I mean, I feel like part of your opinions and stuff, you've been interested in filmmaking as well.
Yeah,
I've always only been entertained.
So here's my thing. He's a writer and a director of films. That's his job. He's not good at it. He's not good at camera placement. He's not good at writing. He's not good at character development. He's not good at editing. He's not good at any of it. And don't get me wrong. He knows that. He talks about it a lot. He makes jokes about it. But my thing is, if I hired a plumber to fix my sink and he instead sets my house on fire and then makes a joke about it, I'm like, well, I'm not going to like hire you for another job. I'm going to make you do. Now, here's the thing.
Plumbing's not entertainment, and some people.
I would rather have my house burned down than see Clerks 3. No, I just. But all that is to say, and I'm
good
not
comic writer.
No. If anybody who has ever read The Widening Gyre by the Batman book, they know that he's not, but he was great here.
Okay,
he was great here, and he also wrote Quiver, with Phil Hester, the Green Arrow series around the same time. They are both great. They're both very, very good. Now he was terrible with deadlines, but
so do you think that's because of the absolute love for these characters in particular? Okay.
Yes, I think these were ideas that he was incubating for years.
Okay,
and he got his time to do it. Whereas with his movies, it's like, I don't know, I'll just make a bunch of dick jokes and people think I'm clever. As far as the movie goes, he's mediocre and he meets mediocrity where it's at. So it's like you don't have to aspire. You're just like, oh, anybody can do it. Like, yeah, but they shouldn't. Sorry. All right, elitist prick time over for a few minutes probably. But he did this when he did the Guardian Devil storyline, where there may or may not be an Antichrist involved. This is where his Catholicism really comes back. Yeah, comes back into play. So like Born Again, the Frank Miller thing ended with his mom being his mom had actually not died,
right,
and she was a nun. Mm-hmm. So and it's like it's kind of like they both know, but they're not. They leave it unsaid. And I will say, like, as far as the modern mythos goes, as far as like his Catholicism, as far as like relaunching a title and getting back to its roots, I got to give it to Kevin Smith. He did a great job. His Marvel Knights Daredevil was a great run, a great addition for the character, and it started what will become, I think, 23 now straight years of great runs.
Banger runs. Yeah.
Daredevil, I would argue, and I might have lost all of you with my correct opinion, but Daredevil has had more great runs written of the character than almost any other comic book character. You know, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, but Daredevil has had so many iconic runs between Born Again and Guardian Devil and Shadowlands and all and the stuff that is about to come. And that now we're at what I consider the best Daredevil run. But really quick, and I forgot this, but David Mack, who we were just talking about,
yes,
between Kevin Smith and they brought in Brian Michael Bendis, the heavy hitter, to take over. David Mack did 7 issues. He wrote and drew 7 issues in the interim, connecting those two. And I know
interiors.
Yes, and he wrote it. And I mean, I had to have read them, but I didn't realize that.
So did you do interiors on Echo? Is he actually?
He created Echo.
Right.
He is the creator of Echo. Yeah. So in those like 7 issues. So he did some work.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then they bring on Brian Michael Bendis. Now Brian Michael Bendis at this time, he is Ultimate Spider-Man guy. He is the biggest writer at Marvel. I don't know if you've ever read his Powers. It's a great. I think Michael Evan Oming does the art on it. It's such a great comic. Also. Real quick, Brian Michael Bendis, he did a comic, it's a 6-issue series called Torso, guys, about the serial killer in Cleveland that Elliot Ness has to go hunt down. It is seminal work. It's very dark. Don't read it to your kids. But Brian Michael Bendis.
He also is still, to this day, credited. Bendis and Bagley have the record for creative team runs. They took it from Lee and Kirby on Fantastic Four for Ultimate Spider-Man. By like 2 issues, I think they've got them.
Yeah.
Like 113 or something instead of 111.
And
it's
And Ultimate Spider-Man, as we know, as we can attest, has not lost any of its popularity.
None at all.
In the last few weeks, it's gained more. Ultimate Spider-Man, that book that we all had, Ultimate Spider-Man #1, is now what, a
$70 book.
$70 book.
Yep.
So
crazy.
All thanks to Jonathan Hickman. See, it's all part of a grander thing, guys. But comics build on comics. It like expands from the center. So Brian Michael Bendis does this great run on the character.
Continuing Marvel Knights.
Yes. All the groundwork laid in Marvel Knights is coming through now, and they hit some highs, and eventually they end it. His run ends with Daredevil in prison, yep. And that's how he left him. Like the last issue of this is famous. This is the last issue of Bendis' run leaves Daredevil in prison, and then it's taken over by one of the greatest comics writers to ever do it, Ed Brubaker.
Yeah.
Yes, and then it's like, all right, you figure it out. Now it's your problem. Like, you figure out how to do this. So stop there though. So at around this time is when Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, rest in peace, Tim Sale. We lost last year, but this is when he does Daredevil Yellow. Mm-hmm. It's part of his cycle of Hulk Gray, Captain America White, and then Spider-Man Blue. Which, if you can read that and not cry, you're a monster. But Daredevil Yellow is great, and it's a retelling or a reimagining of the of his origin story, where they explain like his blue and yellow suit was like his red and yellow suit was like made out of like Battling Jack Murdoch's like boxers, and
yeah.
And it was just a wonderful like little thing, and that's one of the best jumping on points if you ever want to get into Daredevil, is pick up the Daredevil Yellow. It's a trade, and read that. It's
actually out of print.
Is it?
They are now releasing it in those giant gallery editions.
Yeah.
But you can get it, but yeah, the regular trades are out of print. You have to get it in the what do they call them now? Like, you know, the size of the Moon Knight that's downstairs, and then do they call them gallery for the Marvels? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Is that how big it is?
That's what it is.
That's a gallery.
Which is cool, though, because the art deserves it. It's neat.
It is. Yeah. No, the Tim Sale stuff, it's great. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, from such hits as Superman for All Seasons, Dark Victory, Long Halloween,
yep,
et al. But that Daredevil Yellow it's such a great thing. So then Ed Brubaker's got him, and I didn't know Ed Brubaker at the time, or at least what he would become to me. But like, what a great, again, somebody who is Ed Brubaker, he's doing this in 2006. So this is the guy bringing Cap back,
dude,
and making Cap great. And Cap is not who I would have paired Ed Brubaker with.
The original,
thank God he did.
The original idea for this, where we're going to split it as far as runs and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what I was bringing up.
We were going to end with our with our favorite Marvel runs, but we're going to save that for later because Daredevil is just too rich of he's too much of fertile ground.
For sure.
But that's what Brubaker's doing, and I mean, I'm sure he's doing his criminal work at the time. The book, not like actual criminal activities, but who knows? He knows the world.
Yeah.
And at the time, so and it's also cool because this one Danny Rand is dressed up as Daredevil and protecting Hell's Kitchen in his stead, and it's just great. If you're having street level crime being written and a street level hero being written by the most
Ed Brubaker.
No one does it better. No one has ever done it better. Except
now has just continued on. He's got an entire career based upon that noir.
Yeah. So absolutely. It's beautiful. And it's noir as hell, man. It's so good. It's just a great. It's so like I can't separate the Bendis Brubaker run because it flows so well. The overall the storytelling, like the way it connects, the way their communication while when Bendis did the handoff is so well, and I think that's the ultimate like Daredevil run. And again, you can these are omnis that they go out of print very quickly, but they're in and out of print. I think the entire Brubaker run and the entire Bendis run, they're two slim omnis each. And that's the entire story.
It's about 100 issues.
Yeah,
all of it. Yeah,
and it's no, even less. They're like thin.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. They were early omnis that Marvel first released when they were first experimenting with the format, and same. That's why the Brubaker
like the $50-$75 size.
Yeah, and that's why the Brubaker's collection is in 5 omnis, and it could really be 2 regular sized ones. Yeah. But yeah, and then when they reprint them, it's like, well, they're gonna buy one, they'll buy 5. So and that's how it ends. So then we get I think it was controversial at the time, and it still probably is the Andy Dougal takes over, and we get the Shadowland run, and this is where so now we're in 2009, and this is where Daredevil starts like his own ninja fortress in the middle of Hell's Kitchen, and he takes over the Hand. Yeah, and he's like he's like running New York, like stopping New York crime with an iron fist, if you will, from here, and it's very dark, it's very strange. I liked it. But
what about it?
You do what?
What about it? I mean,
well, okay, so you take somebody whose views of justice are supposed to be. There's supposed to be layers to it.
Sure.
There's supposed to be like, he's if he does when he stops somebody who's been like legally exonerated, but he knows they're guilty, like he feels some sort of way about that. Here it's just like evil becomes black and white, and I will stop it. There is no court of law anymore.
Sure.
Like, I am the law. So it's like he's abandoning the ethos of like who he is. But then we come to find out, because comics, that he was just possessed. But that's also like, but it's like being like such a devout Catholic, guilty Catholic being possessed, and it's like, and then doing all this.
Sure.
Yeah. And then after this, this is when he leaves Hell's Kitchen. He's like, got to get away. He feels bad. He leaves T'Challa. He leaves it to Black Panther to like, watch out. You don't have anything better to do, right? Man who runs an entire country. But I like the Shadowland saga. That's one Omni you can get to. Everything's collected right there. It's dark, but it's great. Read it and judge for yourself. I don't know if anybody's still listening. If I lost them with the Kevin Smith stuff, but
I think we'll be okay.
Man, I don't know. You watch Tusk or Yoga Hosers and tell me this guy deserves this job. But anyway, now we're getting into one of the best runs ever. A lot of people's jumping on point.
Completely different night and day.
Completely different. And you could tell, like, even when it was announced who was the writer, one legend in his own time, still with us, Mark Waid.
Yep.
Mark Waid is going to take over there? Like,
Mark Waid. Yep.
The Flash guy, right? The Impulse guy, like the Mark Waid.
Tower Babel.
Yeah. Well, he had an idea. He knocked it out of the park, I think.
Yeah.
He and Chris Samney, they put him in San Francisco to start, and they crafted one of the most fun, gorgeous Daredevil runs ever.
Happy Matt Murdock.
They let him be happy for a little bit.
Yep.
And it was great to see. He'd gone through some shit. He'd been possessed. He'd been in prison. He'd had a lot of things go bad for him, and it was great. And I was telling Craig about this the other day. Is one of the first issues? It might be the first issue. Is he picks up a homeless person is playing a violin, and he picks it up, and he does not know how to play violin, and he starts playing all these discordant notes, and you see the music printed on each panel to panel, and eventually, gradually, like he listens to it and he feels it out, and by the end, he's playing like this beautiful aria that he just taught himself, and it's like, this is going to be. It sets the tone for the run, and it was an
analysis of the powers and things like that.
Yeah,
that you hadn't previously
and
seen.
His intelligence, and the fact that like he took the time to do it, like he'd never allow himself to do that.
Can I mention a few things real quick?
Absolutely, because we forgot the Daredevil movie.
Yes. But, well, I can tie it in this way. So as far as representation in shows, and I was going to talk, we can talk about the movie after this, but MCU. So like, what I do appreciate about MCU, so in this particular instance, She-Hulk, right? Like, Matt's, you've only seen him in all of MCU previously in New York. Right? And then they bring him to LA, like in the show. And that's kind of like a little, and he's kind of happy.
Right.
And it's that attitude where that little portion where he shows up in She-Hulk is kind of like a tip of the hat to this time period. I just want to mention these lines so that people can like.
He's not tied down to New York in any way, and also I know I don't like that series. I thought it wasn't very good, but I did not have any problem with the him sleeping with Jennifer.
Hooking up,
and then,
yeah.
yeah, and then the walk of shame the next day. Like, you know, Matt makes hasty decisions. You know, he'll deal with the fallout later.
But I mean, he's also like the attitude. He's happy. Like previously, when you'd seen him in the show in Daredevil, it was all that misery, and then he goes over like it is L.A. instead of like San Francisco.
And I'm sure he's going to be miserable again when he goes back to New York. But you know, for this, he got a couple days. Well, yeah, we saw an Echo. Like, yeah, he's not.
Yeah,
he wasn't not great. He wasn't high fiving anybody. Yeah.
You want to talk about the movie?
Let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about the movie. And it should be noted that because of the series that Kevin Smith wrote and bringing back that and of course the popularity, the success of the great Spider-Man movie. That they were looking around for like, what do we have?
Right.
The X-Men movie was doing well. It was a 20th Century Fox had the property. Sony had Spider-Man. Sony had just come off. I think Spider-Man made $400 million domestic, which in today's money is, I think, $400 trillion. It was a huge hit and it was terrific. But the thing about Spider-Man is it had a good writer and a good director. And Daredevil, as we have already seen, had Mark Steven Johnson, the grumpy old men guy, the Simon Birch guy. And I have no problem with the casting.
You're not allowed to give that opinion. Like, in retrospect, when you watched it, you loved it.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
So let's talk about it like that. Not as judgmental old men.
But I mean, I think when I first, I probably liked Nickelback the first time I heard him. It doesn't mean like I'm not gonna go with that.
Leader of Men. I'll stand by it. Hell yeah.
But it was 2003. I was seeing everything, and it was a Daredevil movie, and
the soundtrack was banging. Evanescence was on there, right?
Evanescence. Yeah. I'll tell you what.
Benifer. I mean, come on.
And Elektra, like, one thing that's not going to kill her is sandbags. They snuck into her apartment and they attacked her, and she was like, "Not today, not today, sandbags." Colin Farrell's on the rise because like Hollywood really wanted to make him a leading man, and that wasn't his role. Colin Farrell's great in everything he's ever in, but he was coming off of one of the best movies I've ever seen, Minority Report, 2002.
Yep.
And in 2001, Tigerland, one of the great Joel Schumacher movies. Like Joel Schumacher made some good ones. He was a star on the rise. And he was Bullseye.
Cast as Bullseye, yeah.
Great. You remember killed that old lady on the plane with paper clips? Like, all right. Don't have to ask what year it is. And then with as far as what's your name for
Jennifer Garner?
Jennifer Garner. At least they got somebody who's clearly Greek to play Elektra.
Absolutely.
My issue though with a great Foggy Nelson, though. Jon Favreau was a great Foggy Nelson. But would have been a better director for the film. But my thing with I had it in my head. I had fan casted Edward Norton, 2003 Edward Norton as Daredevil.
Okay.
And so the reason I didn't like Ben Affleck as much is because I was right. I will say this though. And Michael Clark Duncan, or as you call him, Ving Rhames, as Kingpin.
Yeah.
Great. He was a great Kingpin. And I will say this. I recently watched this movie, and while it's not the worst thing ever, it's not great. But that suit holds up. The Daredevil suit is pretty good.
Was the Elektra movie? No. I think Elektra only had Elektra in it, right? So the thing I always think about, and I always remember, was when she finds out the seesaw fight between the two.
Yes.
Is that in Daredevil or is that
that's in Daredevil?
Okay.
Yeah. So I've actually never seen Elektra. I assume the rest of the sandbags find out what she did in that apartment and they come to kill her.
That movie, so I watched it because you have to. It was just okay.
I'm sure it's fine. Jennifer Garner seems like a very nice person.
I mean, she was also riding high. Was that Alias? Was she?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So at that point, she had some like action star chops, and they were like, it made. I mean, at the time, it made sense. Like, she's not Greek, but like she also kind of well known.
No, she was fine.
Hey, who's responsible for Alias? I forget.
I would like to know who had the original idea. Oh wait, a hot female spy. Boy, it must have taken him years to come up with that.
Come on. I love it.
It must have taken J.J. Abrams years to come up with that. Oh man.
You're welcome. Let's move on.
But also, she had that great scene in Catch Me If You Can where she plays the prostitute, and then he runs a game. Leo runs a game on her. It's really good. Steven Spielberg was going to cut that scene, and then Leo lobbied for it, and I think he was right. But that's 2003. You guys should check out the movie. It's fun. It is fun. And the guy that plays Battling Jack Murdoch, I can't remember his name, but he was the guy from the great film An Officer and a Gentleman, 1980, Taylor Hackford, that I won't spoil the end of Officer and Gentleman for you, but he was a great Jack Murdock. It's worth watching. If for no other reason than like completion. It's like if I can watch Blade 3, I can watch Daredevil.
That. What's
that?
We didn't talk about anything about his dad. His dad was a boxer.
We were talking about battling Jack Murdock, and at the beginning, he wanted his son to like hit the books. I'm not going to let you be a bruiser like me. And he wasn't a great boxer. He was a good boxer.
Right.
So he had to take money. He had to get side jobs as
he was tough. He was known for being like just taking.
He was a brawler. Yeah. And he had to take side jobs as an enforcer for the mob. And but he ultimately died because he was supposed to take a fall, and he did not.
And he did not.
He was battling Jack Murdock. And he was also like I like to think like he was like he was like in his late 30s, early 40s, like he shouldn't still be boxing, but like that's all he knew how to do is like.
Well, Matt became old enough with a certain degree of awareness where there was a degree of shame involved in what he was doing, and he kind of wanted to win for him.
Yeah,
right?
and that and like when Matt became aware that you
what he was
on the off time you're working for the mob,
right,
shaking down people in the neighborhood. Frank Miller actually changed that. He made Jack battling Jack. An alcoholic and abusive because Frank Miller can't have any fun. Like, geez, and that's been slowly worked back. They got him back, but
see, that's sad though too because he destroyed his father, but it was a cool touch that his mom was still alive.
Yes,
so it's weird.
It is. When God closed the door, He makes your mom a nun.
Right.
And also it's like so he wanted Matt, and Matt was a good son, so we wanted Matt to like hit the books. You're not gonna be like me, so. Matt had to hide. Matt was training. He was weight training, and he was shadowboxing on his own. But he had to hide that from his dad. So he would like when his dad was around, he would hit the books, and then when he was gone, he'd go to the gym and like work out. So like I've always thought like especially now when like Matt's like reading legal briefs and preparing his defense, and then like defending Hell's Kitchen Night. Like I've never known when the guy sleeps.
Right.
He has to get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. But I think he just got used to it from his childhood. But no, I mean, now we're up to 2015. Mark Wade's done. We have Charles Soule takes over. I love the Charles Soule stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It was what? This is when Kingpin becomes the mayor. Mm-hmm. This is when he becomes the mayor. And again, I think it was Into the Run. We were all a little bit disillusioned with the political system, and I think this was like Charles was like mirroring that, like because Matt was like clearly like how on earth can this be happening? How like Wilson? He's a known criminal,
right?
Like he's been in prison for murder. He's like they call him the Kingpin. That's his name, and now he's going to be the mayor of New York, and he wins. And then this is when Matt goes to like work for him like as his like DA. So he's like trying to be, but like they're both trying to play like mental chess and like who's gonna one up who's doing all this. And Marco Checchetto drew most of that.
Yeah.
No, Marco Checchetto didn't come until Chip.
Till Chip, yeah.
But the Charles Soule stuff, it's really great. But that does bring us like to the latest run.
Well, I'm going to introduce this because it's a big deal now.
Okay.
Soule introduced Muse, right? In that run. So there's been a lot of speculation around that as far as it possibly being in the, it's called Born. We'll talk about the TV show, but the TV show is basically watered down somewhat Born Again story.
Yeah.
But it's called Born Again, but supposedly Muse is going to make like a cameo or some involvement. But that alone, Muse, I feel like is a cool, like brutal villain. So people check out the Soule run for that alone. It's kind of a cool.
Would be cool.
Yeah.
And Charles Soule, he carried the torch for a while, and then and Chip came in though. Chip came in with again like with his Batman failsafe. He came in with a big idea.
Yeah.
Matt was gonna age up. He was gonna he start feeling the years of doing this.
Yeah.
And then he wants to when he's assembling all the the anti-heroes essentially and in the hand, and he's going to give him like free healthcare and stuff like that, like come join my team. And he ends up, how does he end up? Well, I do like this has some of my favorite stuff because this is when Wilson Fisk starts talking to the I can't remember the rich family, the brother and sister, but he starts learning like real power. Like Wilson Fisk has always thought that he like ran New York, but he realized like no, real power is with the people that like the corporation that own the corporations that own the media companies.
Right.
Like, this is real power. Like Kingpin, like we orchestrate. We're letting you be mayor.
He went from Penguin at that point to the Lex Luthor. Like mentality.
Oh man, and it was I mean, it was great. So no, this is when so Daredevil, he kills somebody on accident in this, and you know, that's gonna rack him with guilt. So he kind of like
prison.
Gets away from the mantle. Didn't he like give himself up after that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then other people have to like take care of Hell's Kitchen. It ended though with it ended with him in literal hell.
But so to bring Elektra back though, Elektra.
Oh yeah. So while he's gone.
So the cool part about that Zdarsky run is Daredevil is still a thing, but Elektra is as Daredevil, and part of the conflict there in that whole run is that Elektra still handles. It's very much you hit the nail on the head before. It's like a Bruce and Selena type thing.
Yeah.
Like with the extent of like, so obviously, Elektra was killed, brought back. Lazarus Pit type thing. She's not kind of like not great. Still has like she was the leader of the Hand.
She always scared me though.
Yeah, she's kind of scary.
She's deadly.
But she's taking on like that love is kind of like took on the mantle of Daredevil, kind of taking
something that she
over.
and it is reluctantly, like she would never done, and every time, and like she doesn't kill anybody, and it's always like it's because of Matt that I'm not going to.
It's because of Matt, right? Boy, it's not in her nature. No.
I would in all of you, and this is also like this run was really interesting. Like Chip Zdarsky comes off as all jokes and everything, but this was like once Matt's like inside, like in the actual penal system, and he sees like the rate of recidivism and the rate of like we don't actually rehabilitate anything with this current, and like that's another view.
You just do your time and then you go back out, and that's that.
Yeah. And as a lawyer, it's a great way to look at it. But yeah, and then him and Elektra are building this thing, and then while they're building it, the other Marvel heroes want to stop them, and it's sad too because it's when Spider-Man and him are at odds, and I hate to see that because.
But it's some of the best Spider-Man writing in the last however many years.
It's so great. But Chip knows from what he speaks when it comes to Spider-Man.
Yep.
No, almost nobody puts words in that guy's mouth like he does, and it does. It ends with he ends up giving up his soul for his friends, but maybe not. It's a great
maybe not.
Because the last time we see him, you know, but because he's doing such a selfless act, he doesn't lose himself and he doesn't lose his soul probably, and then it ended just a few months ago.
Yeah. And we picked up with a new one
with him as a local priest
priest.
He's essentially Bing Crosby from Going My Way. I think I've mentioned that on this show before. I really love that movie, guys. You should see it. Leo McCarey. It's great. Now Saladin Ahmed, I think there are 5 issues in.
Yes,
and it's been very serviceable. I have nothing to really say here. I have no strong opinions one way or the other. I'm waiting for him to wow me. I mean, he didn't come in with Chip's ideas, but then again, if you're following up Zdarsky, Soule, Mark Waid, Brubaker, Bendis, Diggle, like how do you follow that up?
And you got to let it breathe a little bit. That's
so we're giving it time,
and I'm grateful for that. There are still books you can do that with, and I feel like
they're not canceling
you have
Daredevil.
Action, you have Batman, you have those books, and like good stuff with Miles. Like I said, the first run of Abbott was great. There's a lot of ideas there, and there's a lot of things to work with, but you got to give it time. You got to give it time.
We should talk about. I mean, absolutely. We have to before we go is the superlative. I think universally loved
show
the Netflix series. 3 seasons. I remember after the first season, I watched all in one night.
Yeah,
I couldn't, and by the episode 13, because that's back when Netflix was doing 13 episodes, whether they had 6 episodes worth of story or not. It was like a mandate.
Yeah.
I also season 1 had I don't know if he played Ben Urich, but who we didn't talk about, but Ben Urich is a journalist for the Daily Bugle who Matt Murdock befriends, and that's been a friendship and
he did play him.
A source of information over the last 30 years. Yeah, so it's played by Vonnie Curtis Hall, who. He made Gridlocked with Tupac and Tim Roth. You guys should see it. It's underrated. But he also made Glitter with Mariah Carey. And then next thing and I'm watching the show, like I know him from Gridlocked and Glitter.
Glitter.
And then I'm watching this. I was like, is that Vonnie Curtis Hall? Wow.
Ben, yeah.
And he was great in it. But the first season, and he never wears his outfit, and I thought that would upset me, but it was written so well, and the character was done so well. He wears it at the very end, and at the very end, when he's in the alley, and he's got the outfit on, and he throws his billy club, and it goes tock, 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 and he catches it. I mean, that's it. That's what we live for. That's what it's all about.
And then it really picked up. And season 2, just like
boy, well,
with a
and it does what 2003 the film was like trying to go for is like it shows that like he's just a guy. But I love like the reason that they do the one shots and everybody's like, well, it's a technical feat and to show like how good of a fighter
the fight scenes.
But it's just but it's to show like how in real time how tired you get. Like beating up a henchman is hard, trust me.
And how it moves from precise to sloppy.
Yes,
like all of that
gets hard. And I love like after like when some guys are down for like a second, he like leans against the wall and like heaves for a few seconds, and then he's like, okay, and then he gets back, and it's
or
great.
In a hallway, you're in a room and you hear the ruckus, but then somebody flies out. But it's not like an unrealistic superhero flies out. It's
no, the physics are sound.
Yeah, it's like somebody fell out of the doorway. I have a lot to say about that because I think they did an amazing job adapting. So I kind of touched on it before, but like Born Again, the guy in the show ultimately, and I don't know why I can't remember his name right now, but the guy that ends up Frank, I'm sorry. Wasn't he was
Wait, was it?
No.
Oh, I just said that. I'm sorry.
It might be. I forget. It's something plain like that. But anyway, remember in Born Again, he was in the Guardian or whatever in the samurai suit.
Yeah.
He ends up being the guy that's the same guy that ends up making the suit for him.
Yeah. He becomes Gladiator.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So, but he's being like, it's the same type of thing where there's this blackmail here where he's trying to protect. It's that, that runs the line. That's the same. And that's the whole reason why, because when you first meet Gladiator, isn't it like something stupid, like hitting up like a bank or something like that?
Yeah. He's low level crime, but he had a talent. And that's also that series also introduced us to Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin.
Yes.
Or as you call him, Ving Rhames. Vincent D'Onofrio in the show. Now, this was not his first, as you all well know, this was not Vincent D'Onofrio's first role as a Marvel character. He was, of course, Thor in Christopher Columbus's now classic Adventures in Babysitting. And if you don't like that movie, you write that in too. You append that.
Oh my goodness.
You append that like to see Kevin Smith make Adventures in Babysitting.
That was amazing.
His and Islet Waldman as his girl that drives him, Vanessa.
Yep.
Islet Waldman also Superman's. She played Kara in Man of Steel. Laura in Man of Steel.
The mom.
Jeez.
Yes.
Also, I want to point out real quick a correction from last week. I said that all four of the Robins were introduced in a Batman series. When of course
previously
Dick Grayson was in Detective Comics. That was my mistake. I brought shame to both my sensei and my dojo. But we're making amends for it now. But anyway, back to the show. So season 2 where they introduced Elektra and the Hand
and Punisher.
And people, I remember like my sister said she didn't like season 2, and I'm so afraid of my sister, so I didn't say anything back. But it's like, you're so wrong. It's so good. And also, Scott Glenn as Stick. Scott Glenn. Now, I made a Right Stuff joke last week, but you guys should see Scott Glenn, who played the astronaut in the Right Stuff. It's a great film. He also played Alan Pangborn in Castle Rock from 2018-2019, which was produced by J.J. Abrams. It's fine. I'll give you that one. It's fine. Scott Glenn's awesome though, and he plays Stick. And Scott Glenn's he's great. He's not actually blind, but watching him play Stick, you'd never know it.
So it was the introduction. Yes, Barenthal as Punisher, fantastic Punisher.
That's up there with Tom Holland Spider-Man as far as perfect casting.
Like I don't
perfect casting.
Anybody that has to play him after.
Yeah, don't recast him. And also, I can't remember the guy's name right now. I know Deborah Ann Wall plays Karen Page, but I can't remember the guy who plays Foggy Nelson. But he is
the guy from Mighty Ducks. I can't remember his name. Yeah,
Pitch Perfect. Mighty Ducks. Let's talk about number 2 for a second. Could we all agree that the knuckle puck probably wouldn't work that way in real life? He just put it on its side.
I agree.
I think it would fly super high.
More surface area, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, Keenan. Like that's not how. Also, like knuckle. It doesn't matter. Mighty Ducks 2 suffers from a few narrative flaws, but it's still fun. But what was number 3? Number 3, they took him out of his suit again.
Yeah.
Yeah. but it was still really good. Like we put this on the other day in the shop just as some background noise, and I remember Demetri and I were like, we couldn't quit watching the show. It was like, this is such a great show, and
they kill Elektra in it.
Yeah,
they introduce. So what is it in that one? It's Punisher, and does Jigsaw make the appearance there? Is all of just the Punisher by himself where Jigsaw is introduced? What it basically is.
And 3 when they introduced Bullseye.
3 is when they introduced Bullseye, and Kingpin's actually in
prison. Yeah.
For no, because he's actually in prison in 2.
2 when Daredevil goes to visit him.
Yes,
and beats it. Yeah. No, what else was I trying to think? There's something else that happens in 2 that's no, because then I was going to say when Punisher spins off and it has some of the best TV they ever made.
Yes, absolutely.
The problem with Daredevil came first, and it was like Jessica Jones season 1 was great. Luke Cage season 1 was good. Iron Fist season 1 and 2 were just bad, just horrible. But like Daredevil was so good that it kind of
there were elements of it that I really it made me even more sad. I love the casting, and I love the character of Colleen. I think Colleen Wing was done very well in that show.
Jessica Fenwick, she was terrific, terrific. I hope she sticks around. Missy Knight.
Yep.
Was there? They
got her arm. I mean,
they hit all the
stuff,
highs that they have to do. I just hope, and I think Jeff Loeb was a head writer, wasn't he? And Stephen Knight was the showrunner. So they had the talent.
Marshala, that's one of the things making all those things canon. They've got a little bit of a whoopsie daisy there because Mahershala Ali,
and Cage, and same, and
now he's going to be Blade, so
and Alfred Woodard in Cage. So
there's a few things there. Yeah, I don't really.
They've worked that out. Luke Cage had the best soundtrack of all of them. I remember Luke Cage had one show open up with Raphael Sadiq on stage.
Awesome.
I'm like, well, this show's great. But no, Daredevil, and I actually like the Defenders very much.
Because the Defenders itself was where it did the culmination where they found out that the Hand is digging that hole, right?
Yeah.
That was everything being okay.
And I thought it was really good. It was 8 episodes. It was poorly reviewed, but I thought it was great. But I mean, Iron Fist left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. But Sigourney Weaver, come on, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. But no, the Daredevil show was an absolute triumph. And he's coming back. I know everybody else feels the same, but when I first saw No Way Home, my favorite part in it at the end of it was when just when you see the Billy when he puts down the stick in the foreground and he hits it really and he hits the floor and everybody starts cheering and it's like, oh, everybody knew, like casual people on the street knew, here's a blind person, it must be Daredevil, Matt Murdock, it must be Daredevil, and people are cheering, like kids are cheering, and it was so rousing, it was so great. And yeah, when he catches the break, he's like, I'm a very good lawyer, because like I'm assuming that comes up in law school. But I love that, and I hope that they build on that friendship between Charlie Cox's Daredevil and Spider-Man now.
Well, and there's cool things I'm going to talk about. Charlie Cox in particular. I think he was a big advocate. Like when the show very first came out, there was a whole deal where I think it was he either advocating or something. That show basically about the blind superhero. That was the first like MCU that actually had the not just regular closed captioning. He did something.
Oh, did it do so that blind people can the sensory whatever?
Yes,
so they know what it.
Yeah. So that was one of those things where it was like it went hand in hand. That show kind of was like, oh well, this makes total sense. Like it should be.
And speaking of that, so I don't know if this is racist or not, but when my friend Andy and I, when I first met her, I found out both of her parents were blind, and I was like, I don't mean to sound racist, but do you guys like Daredevil? And she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, yes, we do. Like we think he's so like because apparently in the blind community,
maybe ableist, not racist, right?
And I was just having fun with nomenclature, man. I know. You know me. They said like perception of the blind community or people with the blind community is like that they do have like that they can't have like super hearing.
Sure,
or whatever.
yeah.
Like it's like they just have fun with that, and it's like it's fun, and it's like that is so great. It's like the first thing I said because I'm gonna relate everything to like comics.
Wait. Can your parents just instantly pick up a violin and just work it out?
Is that how it works? Does your dad fight crime?
That's awesome, though.
It is great. So and to look forward to, we have Born Again coming out. It's going to be 18 episodes at time of recording. And a good thing about that is apparently they were looking at the early dailies, and Kevin Feige said, "This isn't good. We're going to get rid of this team. We're going to
bring it back,
hire new people, and we're going to reshoot things, and we're going to make it good." And it's like, that's great. That's great. Where were you 2 years ago?
Most of the changes are reverting, both in casting and
because they were not originally. They're not going to bring back Foggy, the Foggy actress and the actor in the Page. Karen Page,
yep.
Actually, and that's like great. Why would you not done that? They were fine. I don't get the not people don't like the Deborah Ann Wall portrayal. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think she's fine, and as long as Vincent D'Onofrio's there,
yeah,
wrecking shit. And as we just saw on Echo, like, yeah, this guy,
formidable.
He is formidable.
It's awesome.
It is.
So, anything else? I guess in conclusion about the Devil.
Hell's
Kitchen?
No, I love this character. I've grown up with him. He's been by my side through thick and thin. 2011, 2012, I hit the highest highs of my life and the lowest lows all at the same time, and that was when Mark Waid, Chris Amney, Pablo Rivera were doing these Daredevil comics, and I remember at the time, like, thank goodness I've got these right now, and they got me through, and that's what great art can do.
And I guess that's what I mentioned from the store perspective, and just as far as releasing of these books, this year there are actually a lot of Daredevils, both in reprint on Omnis. Like Mark Waid, I think just recently came out. They're getting a reprint.
Third printing.
Yeah, third printing. The Zdarsky, both 1 and 2, right? But
yep.
1 is
2
like
got announced.
June-ish,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
So it's a great time to be a Daredevil fan, and
order them, read them all in one go. They're great adventure stories.
Yeah. So on League of Comic Geeks, if you got to pull with us and things like that, all of those Omnis and stuff as they're announced, you can get on there and see the covers and see which books you want and things like that. So make sure you get those in, because I've noticed recently, like even with the most, that Clone Saga that just got reprinted.
Yeah.
The DM cover's already out of print. That came out 3 days ago.
They're just going to keep these Marvel Omnis. They go, man.
Yeah. So if you have any interest, make sure you get those in.
Yeah, the bug's out there. People are reading more comics, and I love to see it. And also, sorry to go so hard about the Kevin Smith seems like a nice guy who does have some talent. JJ is bereft of any of that. Kevin Smith never ruined Star Wars. Never.
That's very true.
Ever. JJ did. And also Kevin Smith's I read his Superman Lives his Superman script when it back in the Ain't It Cool News days and the whatever, and it was great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he gets it. He's got a shop.
Yeah.
I think
I just wish he
genuine
quit
love there.
making his own movies. Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's it.
I think that's going to do it for this week. But we want to thank you. And again, if you want to send in mail, any kind of opinions, agree with us, disagree with us, any of it, send it to podcast@thearcade.
I think, as you all know, I love dissenting opinions. And to all you pony people out there, stay golden.